And notice the process you go through. No, that's a bad spot. Okay. Notice the process you go through to know that that's so, that you feel secure in your balance. And pay attention to your breathing when you've generated this feeling of security. Because it's just a word, really. It's what is it, 6-letter word? Who's counting? Oh, thank you. 7-letter word. Just a word. You all have shades of meaning what that is. How does that meaning of that word reflect in your breathing? What's the rate of your breathing? Which of the two cycles of your breathing is the longer, the in-breath or the out-breath? And then what's the consistency of the duration of the cycle of breath? Is it always a certain duration? Does it vary a lot? Does it vary a little based on your feeling of security? Please stand in a way that you feel totally insecure. Be right on the edge, totally insecure. And it won't take very long here. Notice your breathing. And curiously enough, maybe some of you can't find that edge of insecurity. No, there's some people that are so versatile that it's really hard to find that edge of where you feel insecure. Great, now go looking for security again. Look for a way of standing in which you sense totally through your whole being that you feel secure over both feet. And you might notice that it takes a little while for that state of being to return, to be reinstated. Pay attention to your breathing. Notice how it starts to settle. For some of you, that means it becomes more regular. For some of you, it means that one cycle of the breath starts to become longer in duration. And if you're breathing through your nose, breathe through your mouth. And if you're breathing through your mouth, and it is possible to breathe through your nose, in other words, you don't have a block, breathe through your nose. Notice what changes with your breathing when you change the orifice through which you draw air in. That's a great word, orifice. What do you think? Has that got 7 letters too? Sorry. It's Thursday and I'm feeling particularly wacky. All right, please lie on your back. Orifice. It's almost like oracle, but not quite. I think it's a great Monty Python word, orifice. Yeah, that's right. The oracle is the orifice through which you hear. Those were Jenny's oracle words. Okay. Let yourself settle onto the floor. What's the thing that you're looking for? Oh, I see. Now, some of you might find lying on the floor a very secure place to be. Some of you might not. For whatever reason. In which case, make small little adjustments so that you do feel more and more secure as you feel while staying lying rested. And just like we've been doing, begin to pay attention to your breathing. Notice the duration, the total duration of the breathing cycle, the duration of an out-breath and an in-breath. And let it be simply a process of noticing and not a process of manipulating. It could be for you that that's a tricky process to notice without manipulating. You really need to become more vigilant, more observant. Compare now the duration of the two cycles of your breathing. The duration of the in-breath and the duration of the out. And which of the two is shorter? And over a series of 10 or 15 or 20 breaths, notice whether that short cycle sometimes gets longer and sometimes gets even shorter. So is there variability within that short cycle? Again, please simply observe rather than trying to manipulate. In other words, your intention is to observe and not to deliberately change. If you're breathing through your mouth, breathe through your nose, if that's possible. If you're breathing through your nose, breathe through your mouth. Pay attention to what changes. What's the difference when you breathe through this other habit? Notice if the duration of that shortest cycle of your breathing changes when you breathe through a different orifice. Stop, let your mind rest completely. Don't pay attention. Don't think. Is that possible? Most of you will find that the mind has a mind of its own. That's whatever it wants. So directing your attention is quite a learned skill. To be able to pay attention and maintain the focus on the point of interest. Something to be learned. Bring your attention across to your writing hand. If it's the left, take it to there. If it's the right, take it to there, but let it be your writing hand. If you're ambidextrous, you're faced with a choice. Lift that hand a little bit off the ground with the wrist, with the forearm, and then flip it over so that the other side of the hand rests on the ground. And then do that again. Lift the hand, lift the wrist, lift the forearm, and then flip it over. But don't let it just fall to the floor. No, kind of like just bring it to the floor softly and let it land. Do that many, many times. And every time you pick up the hand and the wrist and the arm, do it as if you were trying to get a sense of the weight of the fingers and the weight of the palm and the weight of the wrist. If that is what you're attempting to get a feeling for, what's the weight of it? And when you begin to have that intention, notice the sensations that start to appear within the fingers, within the palm, within the wrist, within the forearm. Not a very high lift, just enough for the hands to clear the ground so that you can flip it and let it alight down. Yes. Continue doing that at your own leisure for a little while and make the movement very regular, non-stop, so that there's just this continuous lifting, flipping, lowering, lifting, flipping, lowering, again, and again. Not very high, just enough for the hand to clear the ground. Very regular, continuous. Continue making that movement with your hand and now pay attention to it. And is it possible to attend to your breathing and still know that your hand is in the same regular rhythm and the motions and feet? What you're doing when you do that is you're expanding your field of awareness to include the breathing and your. And sometimes our field of awareness is this very small little container. And sometimes our field of awareness, we can expand it to being very, very large, and containing many, many things. At the moment, attend to your breathing, and still know that that hand is flipping in a regular, continuous manner. Now, you know that shortest cycle of your breathing that we discovered earlier on? Would you please manipulate that short cycle of your breathing so that it's equal in duration to 2 flips of the hand? Palm down, palm up, 1 short cycle. Now don't change the speed of the hand, you tricky people. How can you keep the same regular rhythm? In other words, you're playing a little bit with the notion of the arm being a measure for your breathing. The movements of your hand are a measure through which you can begin to explore different rates of breathing. Now, that long cycle of your breath that we have, could you also make that 2 turnings of your hand? So now, the 2 cycles of breath, the in-breath and the out-breath, are of equal duration. 2 cycles of turning of your hand. Notice how acceptable this is to you. When you actually start to manipulate your breathing and try to form it into a very particular form. How's that feel? Stop. Rest yourself and rest your attention. And one of the first physical aspects of ourselves to change when emotions vary is the breathing. And that's what happens. That's what happens. When you're angry, you breathe in a particular way. When you're sad, you breathe in a particular way. When you're absolutely elated, you breathe in a particular way. When you're confused, you breathe in a particular way. It's just how it happens. A whole system is involved, including the breathing. Please return to lying on the back and begin to re-establish those regular movements of your writing hand. Now, you already know the kinds of investigation you're doing. So if you started off with really quick flips, you could make a different choice. If you started off with really slow flips, you can anticipate and make a different choice, knowing that you're going to be timing the breathing cycles here. Leave your elbow on the floor. So that it's just your hand and your wrist and the forearm that's lifting, and the elbow can just stay on the floor, grounded there at your elbow. Yeah, leave your elbow on the floor so that it's only your fingers and your hand and your wrist and your forearm that's lifting. The elbow remains grounded. Every time that you get to that point in your breathing cycle where you've finished your exhalation, pause your breathing for 2 flips of the hand. So at the end of the exhalation, when you finish exhaling air, pause for 2 flips of the hand. Then continue. And the other cycles of the breath can be any duration you like. But that pause at the end of the exhalation is 2 flips of the hand. Just let yourself breathe as you usually do and keep the hand movement going. Now, at the end of the inhalation, when you finish inhaling all the air, pause for 2 flips of the hand. Some of you might not pause at the end of the exhalation in the short cycle of breathing. So you're introducing a little bit of a art. See how you go. And you might find that sometimes you remember the pause, and sometimes you completely forget. So this business of intentionally regulating the breathing in a particular function, when you first start to do it, it's really tricky. return to breathing as you usually do, whatever that is. Still maintain regular, continuous movement of hand and foot. And remember, as you make that movement of the hand and forearm, it's as if you wanting to experience the weight of the fingers, thumb, finger, middle, ring, little, arm of the hand, with the forearm, with every foot. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a kind of sensuality to this flipping movement of the arm. It's not just simply perfunctory, it's doing it. Breathe out the two flicks of the hand. Pause the two flicks of the hand. Breathe in the two flicks of the hand. And then pause the two flicks. That's the some. So breathe out the two flicks of the hand. Breathe and pause the two flicks of the hand. Breathe in two flicks of the hand. And then pause the two flicks of the hand. So now your breathing cycle consists of 4 phases: an out breath, a pause, an in breath, a pause. Momentarily stopping breathing. Now the transition, very interesting. How do you make a transition from exhaling to pausing, and from pausing to inhaling, and from inhaling to pausing? Notice, are those transitions abrupt? Or is the segue really smooth? See if you can smooth out the tension so that the out breath flows into a pause, and then the pause flows into an in breath, and the in breath flows into a pause, pause, pause. And when you notice that your mind has wandered off somewhere else, just re-establish the regular breathing, the regular movements of your hands. Remember what you're doing, and then off you go. Let yourself breathe as you want. Stop making the movements. I hesitated a little bit in that statement. Let yourself breathe in one. Because the you in that particular instance, is that the conscious controlling you, or is that the physiological you? What you're discovering in this lesson is that you can consciously control and regulate your breathing, or not. There's a part of you, there is an aspect of you that's going to regulate your breathing anyway. And you can introduce an override, or just simply let the breath form as it comes according to the situation. That's a choice. Okay. Roll to one side, same process, come up with a big long stretch. Get rid of all the effects. Notice when you've regained your standing stance, if you experience yourself different. Because so far, everything's been asymmetrical line, the use of the one hand, the quality of the use of that hand. Talk a little bit, feel what it's and then find your way to the place that you were lying on. And this time, lie down on your front. And whatever you need to do to make lying on your front less stressful, more acceptable, do it. I was just about to say, thank you for prompting me. The hand that you write with, could you elongate that arm slightly on the floor above your head? The arm doesn't have to be completely straight, just a comfortable distance. And could you rest your forehead on the other hand? Now, as I said, adjust yourself so that this position becomes acceptable. And if it's not acceptable by having your forehead resting on your hand, turn your head to one side and rest your head on the floor or on your hand as you wish. But that writing hand you write with is definitely long on the floor above you. Bring your attention to your breathing. And notice the duration of the in-breath and the duration of the out-breath. Which of the two is shorter? And this is a new situation. Now the floor is pressing up against those two parts of yourself that are so involved in breathing, the abdomen and the chest. You could say that the floor is constraining your capacity to expand in that breath. You're so responsible. And I don't mean you're conscious. And some of you might feel more secure like this. Some of you may not. It depends on whether you're feeling that you're getting the air that you need. If you feel that you're not getting the air that you need, our system kicks into security, kicks into seeking security. So making an adjustment so that you feel more secure within the constraints of this position. Which was the short word before? In-breath or the out? Have the palm of your hand resting on the floor. And very, very delicately lift your index finger from the floor and then return it to the floor. And this time, make a little tap. Make a regular, continuous tap. Or whatever speed you want. The important thing is the regularity and the continuity, because that is going to be your system of regulating or measuring the duration of your length of breath cycle. Now, count how many taps are in the short breath cycle. Is it 1 tap? 3, 3, 4? How many? If you even feel the hint, the smallest hint, that it's a strain to lift the index finger, see if you can reposition your arm, reposition your wrist, where that strain is totally absent. How many taps for the shortest part of the breath cycle? Now, that long breath cycle, could you make it the same amount of taps? And now your two regular breath cycles, the in-breath and the out-breath, are both timed to the shortest breath cycle. You slip from breathing as you do to breathing how you intend. So, let yourself pause for a little while. You'll be coming back to lying on the front. If you come out of that position, that's fine. The rest, that's fine. 2 minutes, huh? I'll see. Let's let you do for 2 minutes. When I give you the time to rest for 2 minutes, when you give yourself time, rest 2 minutes. Instead of having to use your attention to quickly seek what's different, what's changed, you now have a greater leisure for novelty, for differences to actually appear to you rather than you go looking for them. That means you can stay bright and crisp in your awareness and appearances. Ooh, come to you. You go, oh, that's it. Ooh. Oh, that's it. You clean to line on the front. Arrange your writing arm, your writing hand in that same direction. Line on the front. Unless, of course, you don't want to line your thumb. And begin to make those tapping movements with your index finger. Tap, 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 tap. Remember the number of taps that you made for the shortest breath cycle. Remember how many taps you made? At the end of the exhalation, tap, pause, and make the same number of. And do that at the end of every exhalation. A little bit of a pause, those many taps, and then continue to breathe as you do. As you do. And you're deliberately amplified for presenting force. Now switch that over. Pause at the end of the in-breath. You can breathe as you move on the other side. Sometimes the speed of the tapping. Now the same number of taps of the finger, a pause at the end of the inhale, a pause at the end of the exhale. And now make all 4 phases of your breathing the same duration, the same number of counts. The exhale, the pause, the inhale, the pause. Simply notice when you completely lose the count. When you forget the pause, when you forget the count, just simply notice, no big deal. And then you can return to it. Probably that's the most important part of this whole practice that you're doing. To know when what you're doing is not aligned with your original intent. Doing something else. Let that be, roll onto the back. Notice what's different. Yes, I know the wrong. Sometimes it's the most obvious things that you don't even think about. Or is it just me? It could be just me. When you're given time like this, notice. What's your preference? Are you a seeker or are you a catcher? Do you catch impressions or do you go seeking out impressions? So we'll continue this process in more ATM later. ATM process, come up to stand. Notice what your breathing is when you're standing. if you go seeking for that feeling of security, you're better able to use your breathing to give you a sense of, is it better? Am I feeling more secure? Is that even more secure than before? Oh, is that even more secure? So paying attention to your breathing, the duration, the effort, quality, you feel a wonderful barometer today. Let that be. We'll go into right until point two, and we'll come back and we'll analyze the